Very good. It is 12 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar, which is part 3 in our core SEO webinar series. I'm Harry Brooks with Conversion Pipeline. I'm going to take you through today's webinar, and these are the items we're going to go through. First, I'm going to just quickly touch on the components of SEO so that we kind of know where we're starting from. If you weren't in the first two sessions, I'll just give a quick recap on that. And then we're going to go through how links work. So everybody's kind of heard about backlinks and SEO, but understanding the why to it is really important, because then the how becomes a lot easier to grasp, and the importance of it. So besides linking, there are some other things you'll hear SEOs and marketing agencies talk about, off-page optimizations. So I'm going to talk about what those are and some of the really important ones. So at the end, we should have a pretty good understanding of what off-page optimization is, why it's important, and how you should go about doing it. So without further ado, we'll jump right into it. We've seen this in the first two webinars, which is our triangle of SEO. And this is really just the summary of how SEO works. You pick a key phrase or a closely related set of key phrases, build a piece of content around that idea, that key phrase idea, and that could be a blog post or a page on your website, and then point links to it. And those links can come from other sites out there on the web, or links from inside your own website. And by doing those three things, picking a key phrase, getting a piece of content, and then pointing links to it, that page will then become more important for those key phrases to Google and show up in search engines for it. That's the whole process of SEO. A much simplified description of it, but in its bare bones, that's how it works. So what we're talking about today is this backlink building, and really links in general, because it's not just about links from other sites to your website, but it's actually links within your own website as well. So to understand this, we get to dig into math. And this is what you're looking at now. Don't worry, we're not going to actually do this math, but I want you to understand what it is, because this is a big part of the why behind backlinking and why we do it. And actually, even though this looks scary, this is actually a pretty simple equation. And I'm going to tell you what these components are, and then it'll just make sense as to why I'm telling you this. But the bottom line here is that we want to understand the kind of connection between the value of links and the authority of your website, and what that does to make your website rank in Google for a specific search term or not. So that connection between PageRank, page authority, and ranking is what we're going to talk about. So PageRank, you'll hear me say that a lot over the course of the next several minutes. So PageRank is so named for Larry Page. It's not your page's rank, it's Larry Page, one of the founders of Google. Larry Page and Sergey Brin are the guys who came up with this algorithm. And what you're looking at here is a massively simplified version of that algorithm. This is kind of if you strip out all the things that make it the wonder that it is, this is really its bare bones. What Brin and Page did when they first created the first iteration of Google, which was a white paper or a paper at Stanford University. So what they came up with was this concept of PageRank. And PageRank is, in its simplest version, the importance of a web page. The more PageRank a given web page has, the more important it is, or the higher authority that page has. So if you could imagine picture a set of 5 documents, paper documents, just pieces of paper with academic writing on them, 5 different documents. What they were trying to do is come up with a way to algorithmically select the one of those 5 documents that was the most important or the most valuable. So how do you do that? And that's what PageRank does. So very quickly, and again, we're not going to get into the math behind this, but I want you to understand the components of it. This is the page rank of a given page, the page rank PR of a given page. The page rank of a given page is equal to the sum of the page rank divided by number of links on that page, add it all up. And I know that sounded like a mouthful, but I'm going to actually show you how they come up with this, and it'll make a lot more sense. So the bottom line for this, and the key takeaway here, is that we want lots of page rank. We want for each page on your site to have as high a page rank value as possible, because the higher it is, it's a big indicator of page authority. So let's go through an example, a kind of a graphic example of how this works, and I'll see if I can explain how PageRank is accumulated in a given web page over time. So what we're looking at here is a universe of 5 individual web pages, not websites, but web pages, page A, B, C, and D. And for our purposes here, it doesn't matter if they're on the same website or not. It's just to illustrate how PageRank is accumulated on a given site. So when the first PageRank algorithm was written, there needed to be some baseline value for a given page. And for this example, we're going to call that baseline value 1, PageRank 1. So each page has this intrinsic value. And it's more complicated than that, but to illustrate the point, this makes it simple to do. So each page on the web, and you can imagine there are billions and billions of them, each page on the web has this intrinsic value, kind of a baseline page rank, if you will. And some pages on the web get more page rank by virtue of people linking to them. And the more people that link to that page from their pages, with each link, they're giving a little bit of page rank. And so let's follow this example through, ignoring E for just a minute. So if we have site page A with page rank 1, it has an accumulated page rank value of 1, and it has 3 links on it. 1 link, 2 links, and 3 links. And link 1 goes to site page B, link 2 goes to page C, and link 3 goes to page D. What's happening is, since page A has 1 page rank, and there are 3 links on the page, 1 divided by 3 is 0.33. So each one of those links on the page sends 0.33 of added page rank to the linked to page. So let's take page B, for example. It started with a page rank of 1 because it's an intrinsic value. It just has that starting value. But then the link from page A gives it 0.33 more. So now page B has 1.33 total accumulated page rank value. Same thing with page C. It started with 1, its intrinsic value, but A links to it. And by virtue of that link, it sends 0.33 over to page C. And again, the reason it sends 0.3 is because page rank 1 is the total value for A, and there are 3 links on it. So each link sends an equal amount from the total accumulated value to the pages it links to. So by using that method, each page receives 0.33 from page A. And if there were a link 4 pointing to another page, each of those 4 links would send 0.25, and so on and so forth. Therefore, there were 10 links on page A, each outbound link would send 0.1, and so on and so forth. So this is the way one page sends more page rank to another page. So you can imagine, if say you have page C on your website. Let's say you have a website about restaurant in Washington, D.C. That's one of the examples we've been using. And let's say this page is about best happy hours in Washington, D.C. And nobody linked to it at first. And so it just had a baseline page rank, kind of run of the mill, just like billions of other pages. But all of a sudden, somebody with a page rank of 50 has 2 links on that page, and they link one of those links to your page. Now, all of a sudden, you had your baseline 1 plus 25. So now your total accumulated page rank value for this page would be 26. So you could see that by other sites linking to yours, you're accumulating authority or page rank value. So let's talk for a minute about this page E. What happens when page E links to page A? Well, page E also has its baseline value of 1. And if it only has a single link on it and it points to page A, the entire amount of that page rank is going to be pointed to this page or given to this page. So if page A starts with a page rank of 1 and page E links to it and only it, the new page rank for page A is 2. Well, this shuffles all the way through the web. It shuffles all the way through all the interlinked pages. Because if site A, page A, has an accumulated page rank of 2, and it has 3 links on it, 1 to B, 1 to C, and 1 to D, each of those outbound links is going to carry with it a third, because there are 3 links, of page rank 2. So now link 1 is going to have a page rank of 0.67, and same with link 2 and same with link 3. So because this page A has inbound links, its page rank goes up, and therefore anything that page A links to will also receive more page rank. So in this way, you can see that the more links you get from other websites to yours, the more page rank value your site accumulates. And the trick is that if you have one link, what this really illustrates, if there's one link from a very authoritative site, that one link can be worth a lot of accumulated page rank value. So you could conceivably have hundreds or even thousands of backlinks, and then you get one from this huge source, this huge authoritative high page rank source, and that all of a sudden makes all the difference in the world. So so all links are not created equal. So something that that's kind of obvious to me, but I need to bring it up and touch on it, is if 3 pages in this example, page B, C, and D, have a tie, which is illustrated here, 1.67 of page rank value in each, that's theoretically a tie. How does Google use that? Or better put, what is the connection between this page rank value and how a page ranks for a given search query? So it's maybe a little counterintuitive, but page rank value is not tied directly to keyword ranking. They're separate. Instead, Google does there are 2 sides to the coin. Side 1 is what we talked about in the first part of the webinar series, which is keyword selection and on-page optimization, part 2. On-page optimization, when Google crawls your page, it figures out what your page is about. So let's say this page B is about flowers, and this page C is about gardening, and this page D is about industrial metal, right? If they are all 3 theoretically tied with PageRank, but the search query in Google is best bulbs for temperate climate, okay, B and C are going to win that every time, even though the PageRank is the same across these 3 sites. Because what Google will do is use that search query and look up in its index what pages contain those words and then rank them. And then it will use the PageRank to try to figure out, well, which of these has more authority. So if both B and C are both suitable pages based on the keyword index for a search query like best bulbs for a temperate climate, then that's when the PageRank value will kick in. And the one with more authority, more PageRank value, will tend to rank higher for a given search query. So that's what happens in the event of a tie. But the key here is that there are these 3 parts. Figure out what keyword you're going to optimize for, write the piece of content that clearly illustrates that, and then build lots of PageRank value by pointing links to that piece of content. And the 3 work together to make sure that your site's showing up for search queries that make sense for that. So this is how PageRank value is accumulated from one page to another. And I think it'll be easier to see in the next slide when we put it into visualize it as part of your website. So on the left side here, let's picture this light blue box as your website with a piece of content on it. And this could be a blog post or a service page or whatever, a piece of content on your site. So when that piece of content gets published, what we want to do is get lots of links to and from it. So these green clouds indicate social sites. So as soon as that blog post gets published, you push it out to Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest and all those other places that you can readily think of that are social sites. But you also get links pointing from out there on the web at large back into that piece of content. And all of these things, even the social sites, are going to contribute to that accumulated PageRank value of this piece of content. So one piece of content can end up having links from other related sites. So let's say this is the piece of content is Best Happy Hours in Washington, D.C. That piece of content may get a link from Ashburn Lifestyle, maybe an Arlington Mommy blog, maybe a craft beer blog or something like that. Maybe a foodie website, Washingtonian.com. And you get the picture. You could have all these links from other websites pointing back to that one piece of content. And then you also see here this little outlier, which is labeled as a press release. So we still do press releases for search engine optimization. And the reason we do them for SEO has kind of evolved over time. It used to be that we got links, valuable PageRank links directly from a press release itself. That's not so much the case anymore, just because Google's kind of gotten wise to that process and may not let that PageRank pass directly to your site. But when a press release is published, like on PR Web, for example, it may also get picked up by lots and lots of other small news websites, like think in the Washington, D.C. area, WJLA.com or WMAL.com or something like that. They pick up these press releases and post them on their sites. Now you have a link from WJLA.com to your website, and that link does help. So, and it can be fleeting. Sometimes those press releases don't stay up a long time, but it builds up to your overall link footprint. So the point is that one piece of content with links from other non-competitive but relevant websites and links from your social sites and perhaps inbound links from press releases and links from anywhere you can think of. Anytime there's a link pointing from some other site to yours, this page, that one little piece of content can go a long way to building a link footprint. And over on the right side, we see what can happen when you do that over and over and over again. So if you can imagine, each one of these little green nodes in this diagram here represents a single piece of content, and all these little surrounding dots are inbound links pointing to it. And over time, you can imagine you get this sprawling link footprint where each one of those little tiny dots is sending a little bit of PageRank value to your given page. And that over time is how a specific page on your site starts building PageRank. Now, we have a big part of what we do is analyzing what's going on your website each month with analytics. So for our clients, we put together a monthly report showing most popular pages in organic rankings and things like that. And for a lot of clients, what's not surprising, but what's interesting to see is that we'll see almost always, call it 85% of the time, the homepage is the most popular page on a website because that's what tends to show up in search really high. There's a simple reason for that, and it's because most people, if they link to a website from somewhere else, they'll just link to the homepage. So what you end up with is your homepage gets all these inbound links, whereas your blog posts or service pages get very few inbound links from out there. And that's why your homepage is almost, like I said, 8 or 9 times out of 10 is going to be your most popular page on the web. We do see in analytics, though, from time to time, somebody will write a blog post about something that maybe doesn't have a lot of competition about it. So you'll get a bunch of links pointing to a blog post because it's maybe about some kind of off the beaten path topic where there aren't many pages of competition. And then all of a sudden we'll see this kind of obscure blog post pop to the top of getting a whole bunch of traffic. So that happens too. And that's a welcome thing. That's exactly why we create content and post it. The key takeaway here is that we want to get the most out of each piece of content we add to our website by promoting it socially, and then by building links from out there on the web back to that piece of content, and then doing some other things like press releases and cross-posting to Google My Business and cross-posting to LinkedIn groups and things like that. All those things will lead to a link footprint that looks very much like the right side of your page. Okay, so the thing about Pagerank is that we've been talking about it, about links as we commonly refer to them as backlinks. That is a link from out there on the web pointing to your website. But the reality is that the same thing works, and Pagerank is indeed passed within your own website. In your own company's web ecosystem, Pagerank is passed from pages to pages. And so we can actually funnel PageRank within your website topically, and it can help make some pages on your website more powerful than others. And the way we do this is with links and supporting content. So here I've got a simple example of a website that has a section on power tools. Here you see kind of 3 silos of information. We've got cordless power tools, electronic power tools, and gas power tools. These silos of information. The deeper this silo is, the more credibility and authority it has. And you can pass PageRank from each of these pages to each of these pages to further develop their own authority. So for example, thinking back to our fancy equation, if each of the pages in the cordless power tools section has a PageRank of 1, and each of these subpages and this page link to and from each other, that means this page right here is going to get PageRank from each of these other pages. So by doing that, there's another thing that's involved, that's at play here too, and that is going back to webinar 2, where we talked about page content, and Google is going to look at this page about cordless power tools and see that there is a link to cordless drills and a link to cordless planters and a link to cordless hammers. And then when it crawls these pages, it's going to see, oh, this links up to cordless power tools, this links up to cordless power tools, this links up to cordless power tools. It will be very clear to the crawler that this silo of information is all about cordless tools of one stripe or another. So you've got a huge depth of keyword relevancy in lots of highly relevant pages that are all linking to each other, sharing PageRank with one another. That makes the entire silo really powerful. The same thing goes for electric power tools. And so too does having all these supporting pages, these 9, 10, 11, these 12 supporting pages, all under the heading power tools, makes power tools really powerful. It provides a lot of authority to this particular page. So if this were a website about tools in general, and power tools was one segment, and garden tools was another, and old-fashioned hand tools was another, each of these main topics would be the most powerful pages. And of course, the top page, which would just be tools, would probably rank the most in Google, because you've got all these supporting pages funneling PageRank up. So The way this plays out in reality is that if you have a service page on your site, let's say you've got a page on your site about um, uh, let's call it well, this is a great example, power tools, but I'm trying to illustrate another one. Let's say you have a website that's about massage and skincare. You have a massage and skincare business, and there are uh, four types of massage. You've got deep tissue massage, Swedish massage, Thai massage, and Reiki, let's say, which isn't really massage, but go with me here. What we do is by linking each of those supporting pages up to the main page, that main page becomes more powerful. So in the page about massages in general, there'll be a link to the page about Swedish massage. There'll be another link in the body content about deep tissue massage. And so when the crawler hits that main massage page, it sees links to these other pages and goes right to them. The bottom line is that when you're creating content for your website, you want the content to be grouped in thematic silos and link from each to each within that silo. And by doing that, you're going to make each page within that thematic silo more powerful. One thing you don't want to do is cross-link between silos of information. So in this example, if you have a page about electric saws and gas-powered saws, those are in two different thematic silos. You don't want to cross-link to them. You will share PageRank that way, but what you're doing is you're diluting your thematic silo, and you're diluting the PageRank that's available within that silo. Remember, as soon as a page links out, it gives PageRank based on the number of other pages that it points to. So if you have a page, electric saws, and it only links to 1, 2, 3 other pages, that's good. It means it's pushing its PageRank to these 3 pages. But now, if electric saws is pushing out to this one too, now it's further diluting its PageRank, and we want to funnel that PageRank into its own thematic silo because it makes the pages therein more powerful. So this in practice, when we put this into actual practice, when we do an on-page optimization and start inserting links within a website, it's not always as pretty as this. It doesn't always work out that way because there are usually links all over a page, and you can look at a given web page for a pretty standard website and be surprised at, to find that if you count the links on them, there are sometimes dozens or hundreds of links on a page that you look at and say, well, looks like a pretty simple website. There are 8 service pages and about us and contact us, and then you realize there are 80 links on that one page. It's because images link to things, and there are text links all over the place, and read more buttons, and then in the footer there's contact us and terms and conditions and all kinds of links on a page that you might not even be aware of until you really start looking for them. So the reality is, when you really look at a website, it's never as pretty as this image. But the takeaway here is that, to the extent possible, for your most important pages, and I would consider those to be the ones in your main navigation, try to keep them linked to one another in these thematic silos to the extent possible. That's the key takeaway. And it'll make it easier to crawl. So Google won't have to work so hard to crawl the information. It'll make it easier for users to navigate. And it will also keep your PageRank funneled into thematic silos that make them more powerful. So that's the quick and dirty on how links, why a link is meaningful to send from one page to another page, and how it passes some value. So when we're providing SEO services for a client, for example, one of the big things we do after the initial startup is this month in, month out, is we're out there building links. And sometimes in a given month, we may get 1 or 2 links, sometimes 1, because we have to go out there and find the links to point to your paid piece of content. We actually have to go out there and find them. Sometimes that means asking people to put links on their site. Sometimes it means guest posting. Sometimes it means finding somebody who you know that has a site that's relevant but non-competitive and asking for a link. Sometimes it means doing a press release. Sometimes it means pushing a link out to social media. The bottom line is that each month and ongoing, we're trying to find new places to get links from other people's sites back to the piece of content on our client sites. So it's kind of a never-ending process to get those external backlinks put into your site. And at the same time, month in, month out, you should be evaluating the content on your own website and where possible, keeping links internally, keeping those thematic silos intact to the greatest degree possible. So that's how external links and internal links can funnel PageRank to make a specific page, a target page, more powerful. And the more accumulated PageRank it has, the more authority it's thought to have. And the more authority it's thought to have, the higher it's likely to rank for a given search query. So that's how those things all fit together. So with once you have a good linking strategy in place, so you're building new backlinks each month and you're interlinking your pages in thematic silos, then we get to these other off-page optimizations. And off-page optimizations are really anything that's happening not on your website, but that will lead your website to rank higher in search results. So one of the big things to start to think about with regard to off-page optimization, especially if you're a local business that is serving a local community or a local geographic area, is we refer to it as NAP, name, address, phone number. And this is important for a couple of reasons. The big one is that when Google webinar 2, when Google looks at a page and then finds the links on the page and then goes and looks at those pages and continues that process, it's crawling the web. When Google's doing that, it will encounter lots of places where your company's name, address, and phone number is listed. And let's say you're Harry's Restaurant, and Google crawls all these sites, and you can see some of them here. It crawls Bing Business and Instagram and Snapchat and TripAdvisor, all these different websites, and it sees references to Harry's Restaurant in Washington, D.C. But in each case, the name, one is Harry's Bar and Grill, one of them is Harry's Bar, one of them is Harry's Restaurant, one of them is just Harry's Grill. The 703 version, one is the 202 version, one is a tracking phone number that you used at one point, and there are all these different phone numbers that Google's encountering as it crawls the web. The problem is that creates confusion to the bot. And then when somebody goes to the search engine and does a search for best happy hour in DC, and Google has to choose, hey, I've got 700 sites to pick from here that contain best happy hour in DC. Which one do I show first? If your site has conflicting name, address, and phone all over the web, Google will be less likely to show that high up in the search results because it's confused. It's not sure if it's presenting a high quality piece of content to its searcher. Whereas Frank's Bar and Grill, on all these websites across the web, any place where the business is listed, it sees Frank's Bar and Grill exactly like that. Frank's Bar & Grill. It sees the exact same address written in the exact same way. So it's STE, 101 instead of the number sign, pound 101. Everything down to that detail is the same. The phone number is the same across all these places. Well, if Google has to choose which one of these two pages about the best happy hour in DC am I going to show, the one where the name, address, and phone is different in 50 sites, or the one where it's exactly the same in all these sites, it's going to pick the one where it's consistent every time, because that consistency means there's a much higher probability that piece of content that Google's displaying to its searcher is quality, that it's a good piece of content. It's been verified by all these other sites. So The key here, this off-page optimization involves this process of going to the main sites that will aggregate your business information and making sure that it's not just completed, and you don't not just that you've claimed your Google My Business listing, for example, but that it has all the information and that it's presented the exact same way as it is in all the other places where you add this information. So it's hugely important to get this both consistency and pervasiveness. It needs to be everywhere. Just having your information on OpenTable isn't enough. It needs to be on OpenTable and Google My Business and anywhere else where you can create a business listing. And for things like restaurants or things that are very, very specific, there are lots of industry specific directories too that you want to be a part of. So this is a bit of a screen cap from part of the Yext network, where they have a tool that will help you identify what these main business listings are and push your information to it. And this is just a tiny fraction of them. It is also very possible to do this manually, to pick the big ones and go after them manually and enter in all your information. Just a bit of a time consuming thing. This frankly is one of the areas where an agency can help a lot of people get this done much quicker and easier because they have access to these aggregation tools. So getting that name, address, and phone number is really important. It's a good piece of off-page optimization, and it will help you get a listing that looks similar to this. So I want to touch on what this is. And I know you've all seen it before. This is what Google calls its knowledge graph. So if you do certain searches in a Google search page will yield a knowledge graph result. And when you're looking at the Google search engine result page, you'll see on the right-hand side of the page, this box, and it has a whole bunch of information. The name of the company, maybe a picture, address, all this information that you're seeing here and more. It might have, does business with or key partnerships. It might have all kinds of different information. And to have your company show up, in a knowledge graph panel is always a good thing. But you want the information to be correct. Now, the way that Google decides what information to show in its knowledge graph and whether or not to show a knowledge graph panel for a given search query is in large part dependent on this. So if it sees good information corroborated across lots of credible sites, then Google will say, okay, here's a company, this dentist office, and we know that they're in Bing Places for Business, and they're in WebMD, and they're in all these different business aggregation sites, and all the information is the same. Therefore, if somebody types in this particular search query, we're going to show a knowledge panel for this particular dentist office, and it's going to include all this information that Google thinks is accurate. So to feed that Google Knowledge Panel is to make sure that your information, particularly your name, address, phone, is consistent and pervasive across the web. So the core data sets, the core aggregation sites, the ones that are most important are going to be Google My Business, Bing Places for Business, Yext, and Localese. Now, Yext and Localese are aggregation services that will, we use them as part of our agency and for our clients. They're basically places that will help connect a single business to lots of data aggregation sites so that you can manage which sites have your information and what information they have. So they're good tools to use for that consistency with your name, address, phone number, and other things. So name, address, phone number is super important. You have to have that. But frankly, I would consider that to be your minimum. That's the minimum piece of information you need to have some coherent level of optimization done on your site off page. The rest of it, this list is a good place to start. So not just your name, address, phone, but these things should really be defined in as many places as possible and defined consistently and pervasively, like we talked about. The business category, directions, descriptions, images, videos, all those things can lead to a better and more authoritative site. And the more of these descriptions that are included in the more places out there on the web, each place that has all this stuff is going to have a link back to your site. And that gets back to the PageRank thing. And the more that this exists, the more authority your site is going to have. And the more authority your site has, the higher a given page on your site is likely to rank for a given search query. So there's this trail of get lots and lots of PageRank, which in turn will establish your authority for a given topic, which will in turn make your site more likely to rank higher for a given search query. That's how it's all tied together. So those are the important things and things that you can get off this webinar today and go sit down at your computer and start putting this information consistently into these places and probably have an immediate result from it. If you don't have your site in lots of these data aggregation places and you sit down to do this, you can make a difference right away. So this is kind of an actionable item that you can take away from this webinar. You can take away the knowledge of why it's important from one site to link to another site. And then you can also take away this little piece that's, okay, I can start doing this today and make a positive difference in my website. So today I want to wrap this up and then see if there are any questions. And these key takeaways, I'm just going to touch on each of them to make sure I clarified them, add a little bit too. When you have a link from another site to your site, it brings credibility to your site, which increases its authority, which increases its ability to rank. This isn't a one and done thing. So this off-page optimization is and link building is something that you need to do just all the time. And it's you can think of it like tending a garden. A simple analogy and how it relates to this is, you can go to the supermarket and buy tomatoes, and that's the equivalent of paid pay-per-click marketing. You can go buy clicks all day long and buy traffic, or you can go out into the lower 40 and plant seeds and grow a garden, and it'll produce tomatoes for the entire season. And so that's link building. Link building is growing your ability to get organic traffic that you don't have to go buy. And that's why it's so important, and it's so important to keep doing it over time so that you get that sprawling link footprint that makes your site a really highly authoritative site over time. It's also really important to remember that link building and funneling PageRank authority can be done inside your own site as well. And in a lot of cases, that's kind of a quick win. So if you have a bunch of pages on your website and none of them link to each other, that's an opportunity to optimize your own site. And there's something I didn't mention, but that's worth mentioning, is that when you link from one page to another on your site or off your site, doesn't matter, the words that you use to link, the clickable text that is clicked to get from one page to another, that influences how Google considers the target page. So for example, if you have a page about power tools and there's a page about power sanders that links to it, the link should say, for more information about power tools, where power tools is the clickable text, and it points to a page about power tools, that's a really strong link. Whereas if it said, for other tips, TIPS, visit the other pages on our site where TIPS was linked and tips went to a page about power tools, when the crawler traverses that link, the crawler is going to say, okay, here's a word, tips. What does that mean? Well, it's pointing to this page. So this page must be really important for the term tips. It just doesn't make any sense. So um, you can help the crawler understand the content and provide a more meaningful link by using anchor text, that is the clickable text, that is tied thematically to whatever content you're pointing it to. Um, Good. I'm glad I remembered to say that. That's important. So the key takeaway, of course, is links can be used inside your site to prop up certain content. Then getting that name, address, phone number is the tip of the iceberg. We want that to be consistent and pervasive across the web, and particularly make sure that it's accurate in Google My Business and Bing Places for Business. And then using some aggregation tools, Localese and Yext are excellent tools. Um, we use them as an agency where we have partner agreements with them. So in a lot of cases, it's easier, frankly, just to go to your agency and say, okay, make sure I'm in these places, and make sure my data is being pushed to all of these myriad data aggregation sites and directory sites. So by doing these things, getting lots of backlinks to your site from external sources on a regular and consistent basis, from organizing the internal links within your own website, getting good name, address, and phone number consistent and pervasive across the web, and making sure that those core data aggregation sites like Google My Business and Bing Places for Business are all completely filled out and accurate. Doing those things are going to get you that off-page optimization that we've talked about. So you have your key phrase that you've decided on, you've got your content that's based on that keyword theme, and then you've got your links that point to that piece of content or those several pieces of content that you want to prop up. And by doing that, that kind of summarizes the entire process of search engine optimization from on page to off page. That covers it for today. Thank you so much today for your time and attention.